He refused money, stating coldly, "I don't want the money. All I want to do is kill you." Investigators also found prints on some of the Zodiac's letters and coded messages, declaring, "This is the Zodiac speaking." The Zodiac, a name that still sends chills down the spine. But who was he? The truth is no one really knows. Tonight we dive into the chilling story of the Zodiac Killer, a shadowy figure who terrorized California in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear might make you question everything you thought you knew about this unsolved mystery. The Zodiac Killer's first known victims were David Faraday, 17, and Betty Jensen, 16, two high school students on their very first date. On December 20th, 1968, David drove them to a quiet spot on Lake Herman Road in Benicia, California. There, the Zodiac shot and killed them. Their bodies were discovered later by a passerby, shocking the local community. The terror didn't stop there. On July 4th, 1969, 22-year-old Darlene Farron, a waitress and new mother, sat in a parking lot at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, California. Suddenly, a car pulled up behind them. A flashlight shone on the passenger side, and then shots rang out. Farron was killed instantly. Majot survived but bore the memory of the attack forever. Hours later, the Zodiac called 911, not to ask for help, but to boast. "I want to report a double murder," he said, "and I also killed those kids last year." The chilling audacity of his confession left police and the public terrified. On September 27, 1969, the Zodiac's terror escalated further. 22-year-old Cecilia Shepard was picnicking at Lake Berryessa in Benicia with her boyfriend Brian Hartnell. The Zodiac appeared, masked and armed, tying the couple at gunpoint. He refused money, stating coldly, "I don't want the money. All I want to do is kill you." He stabbed Shepard repeatedly, 10 to 20 times, while Hartnell survived with injuries. Before leaving, he carved the dates of his previous murders into the car door, a grotesque signature that confirmed his identity as a calculating and ritualistic killer. Just weeks later, on October 11, 1969, the Zodiac claimed his final confirmed victim, 29-year-old cab driver Paul Stein in San Francisco. To prove his claim, he sent a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle, including a blood-stained piece of Stein's shirt, declaring, "This is the Zodiac speaking." One of the most notorious suspects was Arthur Lee Allen, a Navy veteran and former teacher in Atascadero, California. Allen had a fascination with codes, death-themed songs, and even brought animals to class in unusual ways. Investigators noted eerie similarities, misspellings in letters, quotes from songs Allen taught, and suspicious timing with his criminal record. Allen passed away in 1992 at 58. Despite decades of investigation, the Zodiac's identity remains a mystery. The Zodiac Killer case was investigated by many law enforcement agencies. The main ones were the San Francisco Police Department, the Vallejo Police Department, and the Napa County Sheriff's Office. Later on, even the FBI became involved. Despite the efforts of all these agencies, the case remained unsolved, adding to the mystery and fear surrounding the Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer mostly communicated through Bay Area newspapers. He sent letters, coded messages, and even made phone calls to indirectly contact the police and the public. These messages were meant to scare people and prove that he was always one step ahead of the authorities. In a series of letters sent to Bay Area newspapers, the Zodiac openly took credit for his murders. He shared details that only the police knew and threatened bombings and more killings if his letters were not published. Police also collected many types of evidence from the Zodiac crime scenes. This included fingerprints, possible palm prints, bullets and shell casings. Investigators also found prints on some of the Zodiac's letters and coded messages. These were later compared with hundreds of suspects, but no perfect match was ever found. Several eyewitnesses reported seeing suspicious people in vehicles near the Zodiac crime scenes. Near Lake Herman Road, earlier in the night, a couple parked at the same spot where the murders later happened said they saw no other cars at first. But later, they noticed a strange car slowly backing toward them on the road. Feeling uneasy, they decided to leave. Other witnesses also described seeing a dark-colored car in the area shortly before the shootings, which seemed suspicious because the location was very isolated. At Blue Rock Springs, survivor Michael Mageau told police that a car pulled up behind his, then drove away, and later returned. Investigators believe this behavior showed the killer was watching them before the attack. In the Presidio Heights case where Paul Stine was murdered, 3 teenagers watching from a house across the street saw a man sitting in the taxi with Stine. They then saw him leaning over the driver, wiping down surfaces, and cutting a piece of Stine's shirt before calmly walking away. Soon after, 2 San Francisco police officers saw a white male walking near the scene. He told them he had seen someone with a gun nearby. Many investigators now believe this man may have been the Zodiac himself, slipping away right in front of the police. The Zodiac Killer was never caught for several reasons. His crimes happened across different cities and police jurisdictions, which made it hard for investigators to share information and connect all the cases quickly. On top of that, forensic technology in the 1960s was very limited. At the time, there was no DNA profiling, no nationwide fingerprint or ballistics databases, and no CCTV cameras. Police mainly depended on eyewitness descriptions, sketches, handwriting analysis, and manual fingerprint checks. Most of the time, these methods did not lead to clear answers. Police and the FBI investigated the Zodiac case using the detective methods available in the 1960s and 1970s. This included visiting crime scenes, talking to witnesses, comparing physical evidence, and carefully studying the Zodiac's letters and coded messages. Local police departments in Vallejo, Napa, Benicia, and San Francisco handled each crime scene. They collected fingerprints, bullets and shell casings, clothing evidence, and witness statements. Detectives then tried to connect the cases using weapon details and the killer's pattern of behavior. Over the years, they questioned hundreds of suspects using interviews, background checks, handwriting analysis, and lineups. Some suspects, like Arthur Lee Allen, were investigated multiple times, but were never clearly proven to be the killer. The FBI mainly helped by providing forensic and analytical support. They examined fingerprints, small trace evidence, and closely analyzed the Zodiac's letters and ciphers. Experts compared these writings with samples from suspects. Even as technology improved, investigators only found partial DNA and fingerprint results, which were never enough to publicly confirm the Zodiac's identity. Police and the FBI also worked with newspapers to publish the Zodiac's letters and codes. This was done to reduce further threats and to ask the public for help. Thousands of tips came in from people across the country. Each lead had to be checked and investigated, which made the case even larger and more complex. And still unsolved. Newspapers published the Zodiac's letters and codes almost in full. This brought in thousands of tips and potential suspects. Detectives had to go through all of these leads, which greatly increased their workload. Sometimes the Zodiac's threats forced the police to act quickly, like when he threatened school buses. This meant that officers had to respond to urgent situations instead of focusing calmly on evidence and suspects. The constant news stories, his symbol, and detailed coverage of his letters made him more than just a killer. They made him famous. People became both afraid of him and morbidly curious. This attention seemed to be exactly what the Zodiac wanted. The media coverage reinforced his taunting behavior and turned him into a figure that stayed in public memory long after the confirmed murders had stopped. Decades have passed, but the mystery of the Zodiac Killer still haunts California. We know what he did, where and when he struck, and how he sent his terrifying codes to the police and newspapers. But the biggest questions remain unanswered. Who was he really? What made him commit these terrible crimes? And why did he vanish without a trace, leaving behind only symbols and fear?